Evelyn Hayes, do you honestly think you deserve to stand beside Mr. Cole? Madison Lane blocked my path with a champagne flute in her hand. The lights in the Cole Industries product launch gallery were painfully bright. Reporters, business partners, board members, and Adrian's relatives filled the room. Madison smiled at me. Her voice was not loud, but it carried far enough for the nearest guests to hear. Mr. Cole needs a woman who can sit across from investors, close deals, and bring him resources, not a wife who spends her life repairing broken dishes. Several people laughed under their breath. I looked toward Adrian Cole. He stood across the gallery holding a drink. He had heard her. He did not come over. If anything, the look in his eyes suggested he was waiting to see how badly I would embarrass myself. Madison grew bolder. Some women sit in a position so long that they forget it was never really theirs. I did not argue with her. I stepped around Madison and walked directly to Adrian. He frowned and lowered his voice. Evelyn, don't make a scene. I looked at him and suddenly smiled. 9 tomorrow morning. Family court. The calm expression on Adrian's face finally cracked. The waiting period is over, I continued. The judge signs tomorrow. I'm giving you exactly what you want. By the time I returned to the riverfront penthouse, it was nearly 11. Every light was on. White lilies I had arranged that morning stood in a clear vase on the dining table, clean and elegant and cold. The apartment covered more than 3,300 square feet, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking half the city. I had lived there for 3 years and still felt like a temporary guest. I did not wait for Adrian or call him. In the dressing room, I pulled an old suitcase from the bottom shelf. It was the same suitcase I had brought into the Cole family 3 years earlier. Its corners were worn, and it looked completely out of place among the polished custom cabinets. I packed several outfits I wore often. I left every designer gown, piece of jewelry, and handbag Adrian had ordered for me. Then I went to the small room beside the study. It was my ceramic restoration workshop. Calling it a studio was generous. It held one scarred wooden work table, 2 rows of shelves, and an old toolbox I had used for years. Inside were diamond micro drills, brass repair staples, fine sandpaper, magnifying lenses, and several pairs of delicate tweezers. None of the tools were expensive. But they had come with me from Grant Ceramic Restoration, and they were mine. I had just placed the tool roll into my suitcase when I heard the front door. Adrian returned with his suit jacket draped over one arm and his shirt collar open. His expression was hard. Evelyn, are you done? I zipped the suitcase and said nothing. He entered the room, anger compressed beneath every word. Do you understand what kind of event that was? The press was there. Our partners were there. You announced a divorce in public because you wanted everyone to laugh at me? I looked at him. They weren't the ones making you look ridiculous. His brows tightened. What does that mean? Madison said those things while you stood 10 yards away, I said. You heard her, and you let her continue. His face darkened. She spoke without thinking. Did she sit in the front seat of your car without thinking? Did she enter my studio and announce that it should become her yoga room without thinking? Did she stand in front of me tonight and say I was unworthy of being your wife without thinking? Adrian's eyes went cold. Do you have to make everything sound so ugly? I set the suitcase upright. The words aren't ugly, Adrian. What you did was ugly. Silence stretched through the room. Then he gave a bitter laugh. Have you forgotten who begged me to sign our agreement 3 years ago? I did not look away. 3 years earlier, my mother had been critically ill and the hospital bills were overdue. Grant Ceramic Restoration, the small family studio where I had trained, had also been hit with a lawsuit after an accident and was close to shutting down. At the same time, Adrian had just taken control of Cole Industries. His family wanted him to make a strategic marriage. The board wanted a respectable, scandal-free wife beside the new CEO. He needed someone quiet, compliant, and unlikely to interfere. I needed money to save my mother and the studio. So we signed a 3-year marriage of convenience agreement and a detailed prenuptial contract. He paid the medical bills and the studio settlement. I became Mrs. Cole. I haven't forgotten, I said. Adrian stared at me. Then remember that without me, your mother would not be alive. I remember. That's why, for 3 years, I attended every gala you required. When you told me to stay silent, I stayed silent. When your family treated me like furniture, I accepted it. My voice remained low, but every word was clear. I remember the medical bills. But my dignity was never collateral you could keep charging against the debt. Something shifted in his face. For 1 second, he seemed to understand that I was not bluffing. Then the expression disappeared. Walk out that door and you never use the name Mrs. Cole again. I fastened the toolbox straps and placed it into the suitcase. I don't want the name. Adrian did not move. I pulled the suitcase toward the door. His voice followed me. If you leave tonight, don't expect me to take you back. My hand closed around the handle. I did not turn. This time, Adrian, there's no need to wait for me. The streets were nearly empty after midnight. I dragged the suitcase several blocks and finally checked into a modest business hotel. The room was small. The curtains were faded, and the bathroom light was weak. But when the door closed, I could breathe. There was no Adrian. There was no Madison. After my shower, my phone vibrated with a banking alert. Adrian had transferred $1.5 million into the separate account listed in our contract. The memo read, "Divorce settlement." I stared at the words, then deleted the notification. He still believed money ended every conversation. Humiliation, loneliness, betrayal, he thought enough zeros could flatten all of it. I lay in bed unable to sleep. The past 3 years returned one scene at a time. At first, I had tried to make the marriage real. Adrian had chronic stomach problems, so I woke early to prepare mild lunches. I cooked oatmeal until it was soft and packed simple food because he often forgot to eat. Once, Madison came to the penthouse with documents. She saw the lunch container and smiled. "Ms. Hayes takes such good care of you. No wonder you can focus completely on building the company." My hand stopped over the chopsticks. Adrian sat on the couch reviewing the file. He heard her. All he said was, "Leave the documents and go." He did not look at me. He did not correct her. After that, I stopped preparing his lunch. For Adrian's birthday, I saved for months to buy a silk tie. It was not expensive by his standards, but I spent hours choosing the color. I left the box on his desk. He opened it once and pushed it into a drawer. "Don't waste money on useless things." I stood in the doorway and nodded. Several days later, Madison posted a limited edition watch online. Her caption read, "Project bonus from Mr. Cole. Motivation to work even harder." I had seen that watch in a magazine. It cost more than dozens of the ties I could not afford. Another time, I accompanied Adrian to a business dinner. When the driver arrived, Madison slipped into the front passenger seat as naturally as though it belonged to her. I stood beside the car. The driver looked at me, then at Madison, and awkwardly opened the rear door. During the entire ride, Madison and Adrian discussed clients, schedules, and the following morning's meeting. I sat behind them like excess luggage. The moment that finally killed my hope came when she entered my workshop. She and Adrian had returned together because she said she needed a contract. Passing the small room, she pushed open the door. "It's so dark in here. And these shelves are ancient. The room feels depressing." I stood beside her without speaking. She turned to Adrian and smiled. "This would be the perfect yoga studio. We should renovate it." Adrian glanced inside once. "If you like it, have a designer take measurements." That was when I understood. Madison did not lack boundaries. Adrian had given her permission to cross them. That day, I began quietly moving my belongings. A few clothes at a time. Half the tools. The old notebooks that could not be replaced. And I filed for divorce. Under the terms of our agreement, the marriage was already due to end. My attorney completed service, and the statutory waiting period ran while Adrian's legal department assumed I would eventually withdraw. I had been waiting for one final blow. At the launch, Madison told me I did not deserve my husband while Adrian watched. That was enough. Near dawn, I opened my eyes. There were no missed calls from Adrian. Only the settlement transfer I had not touched. I washed my face, dressed, and put the divorce settlement in my bag. At 8:30, I left the hotel. The final hearing was scheduled for 9. I had no intention of being late. I reached the county family courthouse at 8:50. Several young couples waited near the civil ceremony office next door. One carried flowers. Another adjusted his collar. They all looked happy. I stood apart and reviewed the stipulated judgment once more. A few minutes after 9, a black Maybach pulled to the curb. Adrian sat behind the wheel and tapped the horn twice without getting out. In the past, I would have walked to him immediately. This time, I stayed where I was. After half a minute, he stepped out. His face was darker than it had been the night before. "Get in the car. The hearing is inside." He controlled his anger. "There are things we cannot discuss on the courthouse steps." "Then don't discuss them." I held up the settlement. "We are here for the final order." He looked at me as if he were discovering for the first time that I could disobey him. "You're really going to destroy 3 years of dignity over Madison?" I smiled faintly. "I'm not the one who destroyed it." He frowned. "She took the front seat, and you said nothing. She walked into my studio, and you said nothing. Last night she humiliated me in front of your entire company, and you still said nothing." His voice hardened. "She is a business associate. I no longer care what she is." I turned and entered the courthouse. When our case was called, the judge reviewed the identification, the prenuptial agreement, and the signed settlement. "Are both parties entering this judgment voluntarily?" "Yes," I said. Adrian did not answer immediately. I looked at him. "Mr. Cole, other people are waiting." His eyes were dark with anger. After several seconds, he said, "Yes." The clerk placed the final acknowledgement in front of us. I signed without hesitation. Adrian stared at the papers. "If $1.5 million isn't enough, I'll double it," he said suddenly. I lifted my eyes. He seemed to believe he had finally found the number that could control me. $3 million. You can open your own studio or keep repairing those broken ceramics for the rest of your life. It's more than enough." I pushed the pen toward him. "Some debts cannot be settled with money." His hand stopped. People moved in and out of the courtroom. Somewhere beyond the doors, a young couple took photographs, and the faint click of a camera carried down the hall. Adrian watched me for a long time. Then he signed. The judge entered the dissolution order that morning. Outside, the sunlight was almost painfully bright. I placed my certified copy in my bag. Before I reached the bottom of the steps, a red sports car pulled to the curb. Madison stepped out wearing a carefully chosen outfit. When she saw the court order in my hand, triumph flashed across her face. "Mrs. Cole, oh, sorry. I suppose it's just Evelyn now." I moved to walk around her. She blocked me and held up her phone. The screen displayed a photograph taken in a private club. Adrian was leaning back on a couch with his jacket draped around Madison's shoulders. They sat very close together. The timestamp was from the previous night. Madison lowered her voice. "Mr. Cole didn't go home. I stayed with him all night." I studied the photograph. It did not hurt as much as I had expected. Whatever remained inside me had probably been exhausted at the launch. Madison waited for me to break. I pushed the phone away. Her smile faltered. Looking at Adrian's jacket around her shoulders, I said calmly, "You think you won. All you did was catch something I threw away." Her face changed instantly. I walked past her and hailed a cab. Before closing the door, I told the driver, "The old arts district." Cars were not permitted in the narrow historic lane, so I pulled my suitcase between half-open storefronts. The air smelled of old wood, metal shutters, dust, and tea. At the end of the alley stood a small shop with a faded wooden sign. Grant Ceramic Restoration. I stood outside for a moment before entering. Behind the counter, Samuel Grant wore reading glasses and worked on a cracked blue and white plate. He heard the bell but did not look up. "You came back." I placed the suitcase beside the wall. "I came back." Only then did he glance at me. His eyes moved to the divorce decree in my hand and away again. He did not ask whether I had cried. He did not ask whether I regretted anything. He simply said, "Put your things upstairs, wash your face, and come down to work." My nose stung, but I kept my expression steady. 3 years earlier, when I signed the marriage agreement, Samuel had tried to stop me. He told me the greatest danger for a craftsperson was allowing herself to become someone else's decoration. At the time, I had no choice. My mother could not wait for treatment, and the studio could not survive the judgment against it. Now I had finally returned. When I came downstairs, Samuel had placed a wooden case on the work table. He pushed it toward me. "Take a look." Inside lay the fragments of a pale celadone cup, separated by soft cloth. The glaze was the color of a cloudy sky. Dirt had settled deep into several old fractures. One glance told me the piece would be difficult. "A private museum in London sent it," Samuel said. "Several conservators refused the commission. The owner saw the shadow blue cup you repaired years ago and asked whether you were taking work again." I looked up. "They asked for me?" "By name." Samuel removed his glasses. I said nothing more. I opened my tool roll and arranged the magnifier, diamond drill, and tiny brass staples. I set the ceramic fragments on the table one by one, matching the broken edges and measuring the thickness of the clay body. Traditional metal staple restoration could not be rushed. One impatient movement could destroy the entire vessel. Yet sitting at that old wooden table, I felt steady for the first time in years. There was no Mrs. Cole here. No one asked whether I deserved to stand beside a powerful man. My only responsibility was to bring broken pieces back together, one careful step at a time. That evening, my phone rang. "Adrian." I watched the screen for a moment, then answered. "Where are you?" he demanded. I continued cleaning the edge of a fragment. "Mr. Cole, is there a problem?" Silence. "What did you call me?" "We're divorced." "Would another form of address be more appropriate?" His voice quickly turned cold. "Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. You accepted my money. Act accordingly." I set down the tweezers. "I never touched the account." He said nothing. "The access code is your birthday. If you're worried, close the account now." The silence lasted a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. "What do you actually want?" "My own life." I ended the call and blocked his number. The phone went quiet. Across from me, Samuel behaved as though he had heard nothing and pushed a cup of hot tea toward my hand. I did not drink it. I picked up the magnifier and focused on the broken celadone again. Under the work lamp, every fine fracture became clear. For the next 2 weeks, I barely left Grant Ceramic Restoration. During the day, I cleaned the fragments, matched the breaks, and tested their alignment. At night, I slept in the small room above the shop. The windows were old, and the room was narrow. But listening to the historic district close down each night, I slept more peacefully than I ever had in Adrian's penthouse. The celadone cup progressed slowly. Old grime had to be removed grain by grain. The placement of each brass staple had to be tested repeatedly. One afternoon, I was polishing the edge of the final staple with fine sandpaper when Samuel came in carrying an envelope. Adrian was here a few days ago. My hand stopped. Samuel placed the envelope beside the work table. He stood at the end of the alley all afternoon. The rain soaked through his coat. I didn't let him in. I told him you might have taken an overseas commission. I said nothing. He left this. Said they were things you forgot at the penthouse. The sandpaper remained pinched between my fingers. I opened the envelope. Several ordinary items slid out first: an old hair clip, an unused bank card, a small magnifying lens I often carried, and a narrow-handled screwdriver. All of them could plausibly have been left behind. Then something struck the table with a soft click. A black digital recorder slid from the bottom of the envelope. A white label was attached to one edge. Launch Gallery. I picked it up. My thumb hovered over the play button for 2 seconds before pressing it. Static whispered from the speaker. Then Madison's voice emerged. "You really want me to say that in front of everyone?" Adrian answered in a low voice. "Yes." "Make it harsh." The sandpaper tightened in my hand. Madison asked, "What if Evelyn actually gets angry and divorces you?" Adrian laughed. "She won't. I paid for her mother's treatment and covered the studio settlement. She can't leave me." I reached to stop the recording. Before I could, Madison spoke again, so softly that I nearly missed it. She asked Adrian one final question. The moment I understood the words, my entire body went still. "That's impossible," I whispered. "How could he hide something like that from me? How dare he?" For more exciting content, please subscribe and follow us.